Yeah, the women of Miami stay in the kitchen and stay in the bedroom. That's it.
Great. Okay.
Welcome to this impromptu edition of Ring into Focus. Guerilla Pontun, or Gorilla Pontoon, if you will, couldn't be here. He asked me to fill in. And of course, I am Tim. I'm the culture war realist. I'm a rational individualist. I'm the alpha with nostalgia. I know the Lord of the core. I've got the hot takes for the bot fakes. And most importantly, I am never a victim. Thanks for watching. If you're actually watching at 9 o'clock Central Time on a Monday, share the stream on all platforms. If you're watching on replay, thank you very much. Hit the like and leave a comment. Tell friends. We're multi-streaming this morning on Open-Airlock Policy and on Ring into Focus, the other channel. So be sure to sub to them all. And once again, tell friends. We have some pretty big news. This has been known for several months that WWE had an intent to sell. There was even a rumor, if you go back a couple of months, that Endeavor, current owner of UFC, was quote unquote in the hunt. And that came off of the heels of their CEO being at some kind of event in LA. I think it was like a soccer event. Really didn't hear much. And then last night, right around the time that Wrestlemania Night 2 was airing, there were websites reporting, including Wrestling Observer, a couple of their links, which I have pulled up, announcing that the sale was imminent and by Monday, an announcement could be made. Well, we woke up to the news and there was a press conference at 7 o'clock Central, 8 o'clock Eastern. I went ahead and listened to it. Nothing really in it beyond what was in the press release. Which isn't a surprise, and it was recorded. It wasn't a live one, so no shareholders were able to ask questions, anything like that. But this is gigantic news, even though we knew it was coming. Now that it's actually here, and it is going to take months, guys, for the deal to be finalized, for SEC and whichever other regulatory organizations have to approve the sale to make it happen, but it's more or less official. It's going to take, I'd say June at the earliest, but as late as December for this to happen. It's gigantic news, and there's a lot to get into, a lot of implications here. Blake's here. Are you working right now, Blake? It's late at night. It's midnight in Sydney. But if you want to pop on, let me know and I'll send the link for sure. But a lot of implications here. The first thing I'm going to pull up is from the slideshow. And it's hilarious because a lot of outlets were out there saying internally referred to the project as Project Stunner. Well, it's no longer internal because it's right there in the name of the slideshow, Project Stunner. So nice try, guys. Let's go ahead and pull this up, though. Let's see which one it is. Here it is. See any faces you recognize there? So as part of the deal, Vince is going to stay in power. And then there on the bottom right is Nick Khan, the longtime president and one of the few Vince McMahon allies left in the company. Then you may see another face there on the lower left side, not all the way to the left, but the second one over, Dana White, longtime UFC top guy for all intents and purposes, right? Other people own it. He runs it. He knows that business. And apparently up there, the CFO, they've got Tony Soprano on retainer as the chief financial officer of Endeavor. Grand Admiral Adam is in the house. What's going on? Well, there's a lot of implications here, Adam, like tons, man. We're going to get into them. where he still looks coherent and Dana looks 40 pounds lighter. Yeah. And have you seen the mustache? Have you seen Vince's mustache that publicly debuted over the last week? It's horrible. It's horrifying, is what it is. In any event, this is the makeup of the new company, and it's a lot more complex than you think. So Endeavor is a huge media company. They own other sports organizations, as I said, UFC, PBR. For those who don't know, that's professional bull riding. Huge brand, gigantic brand, bigger than you think. Some soccer leagues, and then you move out of the sports area, and they own production companies like this Film 45, who collaborates with Disney and other companies like that. I mean, if you go look at their portfolio, there's a slide on here somewhere, and I'll pull it up in a minute and I'll show you their current makeup. But the intent would be for UFC and WWE to be part of the same entity, not just owned by Endeavor. They would be merged. And for now, they're calling this NewCo. Capital N-E-W, capital C-O. NewCo, or new company. And that's a temporary name until they come up with whatever name they're going to use. And they're going to use TKO as their stock ticker, which is kind of funny because if you look at that, Tony Khan, one of their competitors, Tony Khan, the top guy at AEW, the son of the guy who owns the Jacksonville Jaguars, among other things. Hilarious. TKO. And you can say, oh, it's because, they're going to knock you out and it's a fight entertainment company. But no, I think that's definitely a jab. I think that's definitely a jab at Tony Khan. So this would be the makeup of NewCo, not of Endeavor itself. So what makes this interesting is that there was talk out there that a lot of potential buyers were balking at the fact that Vince would be involved because of the whole, whatever it was, $17 million, $19 million hush money payments to women he had affairs with, women within the company. People didn't want to touch that, right? So it's interesting that this came out this morning, and there he is, the executive chairman of NewCo, of this merger of WWE and UFC. And then, of course, Nick Khan, one of his only allies left at WWE. Longtime guy, if you've never heard of him, no relation to Tony, obviously. No relation there, but he was running the company in the wake of Vince's departure. And of course, on-screen content was being managed by Paul Levesque, a.k.a. Triple H. So somehow Vince worked himself a deal here to stay in power. Now, is it a temporary thing where the deal gets finalized sometime in the summer, maybe fall, and then he steps away? I doubt it. There had to be some kind of mutual agreement there before hands were shaken, because Vince was majority shareholder. And I'll get into that in a second and explain the implications of the share percentage ownership. But let's see who else we have here. We have Godless Scummer. There has to be a future endeavor pun somewhere here. Yeah, I've already seen those out there. They're already out there. The typical accounts, WWE Junkie, WWE Gareth, they're out there making that pun already. One or the other. I've seen it from a few different people. Blake says nothing can be as horrifying as Vince's last stunner. And did you see last night? I don't know if you heard last night, Blake, but Shane was a quote unquote surprise. Came out to the ring to fight Miz and then tore a quad. So It wasn't as good as the Vince quad tier from several years back, but it just brought the crowd down. And then Snoop Dogg had to improvise and gave the Miz a couple of right hands. So that was pretty horrifying. Just the fact that he came out and for whatever reason, the crowd was into it. And then he went down. You're like, oh shit, that's a shoot. He broke his leg or tore his quad. Something happened here. Brandon, the anime guy, expressing his surprise. King Chris. Well, we say it actually happened, but again, it's going to be months until it's finalized. It will be months. I'm going to say as early as June, as late as December, because this isn't really a complex merger, to be honest. It's UFC, it's WWE. Is there some crossover there? Yeah, sure. But I don't think there's anything that would indicate monopoly or anything with implications that they'd be able to exercise collusion, anything like that. I don't think it's going to be an especially difficult review for the SEC and any other organizations that are involved in approving this deal. So it'll happen pretty quick, but June at the earliest. But for all intents and purposes, it's done, or else they wouldn't have signed the thing. They're both being represented by, when I say both, I mean WWE and Endeavor, by independent legal and financial advisors in this case. Blake says Vince just wants access to the UFC women's division. Yeah. Oh man. I don't know if they're his type, Blake. Jack of all casuals, member of the channel. If you're watching for the first time, click on the join button. Check out the perks. Join if you are so interested. Help us keep the lights on. Jack of all casuals, that team is looking to white, need to diversify quick. Well, yeah, depends how you define white, right? And we'll get into that too. Like the implications of, I see people out there, I don't care who buys WWE as long as they're not woke. Well, we'll get into that. I kind of have on social media already. Subhuman 84, the trucking man on the road, in the house. And this is why you watch the indie circuit. I used to, a long time ago. When I say a long time ago, I don't mean like even in the ROH era. I'm talking like in the 90s era. All the tape trading. Used to really be into that. Here comes the money for a new quad. Here comes the money for a new quad. Yeah, he did. He hit the people's elbow. Good improvisation, but just terrible execution. It was hilarious. We were actually laughing our asses off. Godless Scummer, at least there won't be a repeat of Enochiism with NJPW wrestlers getting destroyed in Pride. Man, that takes it back, doesn't it? Who knows, though? Who knows how they'll do this? But I can say that I have a connection to PBR. I actually appeared on a live event, televised. The first airing was on Ride Pass, which is like their streaming service, but replays were on, whichever networks they play them on, ESPN, whatever. And I was in the opening moments of it. So point is, I attend those events, and I'm hoping that if they do some cross-pollination, maybe I can show up and get an opportunity to meet some of the WWE guys or even UFC guys. That'd be awesome. Because they have talked about in this slideshow, which, by the way, is 34 slides long, there will be cross-pollination in advertising and just general promotion. So you see stuff like the cheesy stuff with NASCAR that WWE partners with. You'll see a lot of that because they own all these companies, and that slide is coming. One Man Show is in the house. Greetings and salutations to you as well. Yeah, and smash that like button, guys. Share the stream out there in Discord, Facebook groups, Twitter, Reddit, wherever you want. Jack says, does that mean they can exchange talent? Yeah, it absolutely means that. They will be the same company, NewCo, whatever they come up with. And Dana and Vince like each other. They have worked together in the past. You'll see Vince at UFC events, even as recently as the last 6 months. He and his daughter, Stephanie, and his son-in-law, Triple H, were at an event after all the news started coming out that he, was in trouble for the hush money payments, all that stuff. Now, Dana, I believe, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe he's appeared in the front row or whatever a couple of times at WWE events. Someone tell me if I'm wrong, but I believe that's the case. So they like each other. They collaborated with Brock whenever he was kind of doing both things to where Vince could use them. And then obviously UFC is shoot, right? So you don't want him to get injured and then he's not able to perform in a quote unquote real sport. But they were collaborating. They like each other. And there's not going to be any friction there that we're aware of. So Blake says almost every wrestler will be repped by WME and will be in nearly every movie and TV show. Yeah, that's one of the companies they own, this WME agency. So we're going to take a look at that. That needs a big quote unquote villain or hero. Well, not all of them are big anymore. That's the first thing that they're going to realize. Skirmitar, our friend from Eastern Europe, is in the house. Member of the channel, long time member of the channel, is in the house. What is going on? Yeah, that's people are already talking about that. Like, is it eventually going to be like, Vince's last match against Dana or something like that? Lesnar is hack. You mean a hack? Invasion 2.0. Yeah, let's hope it's not like Invasion 1.0, which started out, it got you excited. And then by the end, it's like, man, this is horrible. It was just like faction versus faction, less like an invasion. Monkey Jeebus is in the house. WrestleMania sucked. Next year is Philadelphia, step down from this year. I didn't think it sucked. I don't think it was the greatest of all time either, but no, it was fine. I think they had issues with pacing and video packages and wasted time that they could have worked in. Someone like LA Knight, who I was a huge fan of when he was in NWA, the new NWA owned by Billy Corgan. My friends from Four Corners said, hey, you got to watch this NWA. This is like back in 2019. You could watch it on YouTube, whatever. They used a setup kind of like the TBS studios back in the day, like a live audience, all that stuff, flags hanging. Awesome stuff. Well, he was fantastic in that. I'm like, that guy right there, if he gets a chance, is going to go somewhere. So it's a travesty that they didn't throw something together. If you add up all the time from these video packages and just the senseless time wasting, maybe he and Bobby Lashley could have somehow had a match. Give them like an 8-minute match, 6-minute match, and let Bobby win, of course, without hurting LA Knight's momentum. They could have done that, but they didn't do it. And that's one of the complaints I had. But all in all, good matches. Didn't really have too much of a problem with it. Probably out of 39 WrestleManias in the top, I'd say in the top 15 for sure. Blake says Randy Orion. You mean Orton running into the UFC light heavyweight championship fight with the steel chair? Yeah. Well, thanks for popping in and listening, Skirmitar. There's a rich history of European wrestling too. A UFC TLC match. I'd watch that. Jump off the octagon. Well, you know, octagon rings, that weird ring that TNA was using back in the day. I didn't like it. Are they still using that as Impact? I have no idea. But that's one of the things that took me out of TNA back in the day. I'm drinking coffee, and this is a rare stream where my regular viewers are watching me where I'm not either highly buzzed or full on drunk. So I'm fully sober, haven't had a shot since about 5:30 yesterday. So I'm just drinking coffee, very strong coffee. Roman versus Connor at WrestleMania. All right, we'll go back to this. It's out there. All right, so that's kind of the makeup of it. So Vince is on this slide because he's going to be one of the leaders of Endeavor, of not of Endeavor, but of NewCo, this merger of UFC and WWE. So here's the percentage breakdown. Endeavor shareholders. You think shareholders, all the common people, right, that own shares? No, that's not what we mean. It includes these guys right here. Vince was the majority shareholder, right, for WWE. That's why he was able to stay in power. When he stood down last year, it was of his own accord. The board voted, blah, 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 whatever. Okay. He had the majority shares. He could do whatever he wants. That's why he was able to come back. So, in this new setup with NewCo, Endeavor will own 51% of the shares. WWE shareholders will hold 49%. So that essentially means that Endeavor is the majority controlling party. The shareholders of Endeavor are the controlling party of this new venture. So if they want, in theory, they could vote him out. But let's see how it plays out until we get more specifics. But the way I'm reading this, that's what I see. If anyone disagrees, let me know. But 51% owned by the Endeavor shareholders, which makes sense, right? Because why would they buy something and then let somebody else run it and own the majority? Oh, well, you're getting the profits. You're getting the revenue. Well, no, it doesn't matter. If you're going to buy something, and I'm not sure it's going to be a $21 billion company if everything sells for what they think it is. WWE was here. They have this up here somewhere. Let's move on to the other slide. Yeah. So UFC's enterprise value was 12.1 billion. WWE's was 9.3. So add that together, you get the 21.4 billion. So again, they wouldn't have entered into this unless they had control. So in theory, they could finalize the deal in the summer, shake everything up because they are going to lay people off. We'll get into that in a minute. But once that happens, they could say, like, hey, Vince, you are an albatross for all that stuff that you did, and you're out of here. Now, recently, there was news that came out that out of his own personal money, the 17, 19 million, I always forget what it is, he paid that money back. But it doesn't change the fact that he had extra marital affairs and paid women off. That's what happened. And a lot of companies don't want to have that hanging around their neck. So that could potentially happen. They merge and then, they have the controlling interest and they say, see you later, Vince. Or maybe that's what he wants. Maybe he wants to get this deal done and then he steps away. We haven't even talked about the implications of this. WWE went public. WWF, went public in 1999 with an IPO. So really, that's when the paradigm shift happened. Before that, they were a family-owned company for decades. Vince's grandfather, Jess McMahon, was a boxing promoter in the DC area, and it kind of merged into Capital Wrestling, which was owned by his father, Vince McMahon Sr. Then he sold to Vince for, $1 million, quote unquote, which was bullshit. It was just, here it is, son, in the early 80s. And then ever since then, Vince has expanded the company. He's basically said, screw the old territory system. I'm going to promote everywhere. I'm going to buy up time on local TV networks to get my brand out there. And of course, at the same time, you had some other promotions like on TBS in the United States. That's the Superstation back in the day. It was effectively your first cable station out of Atlanta. So that wrestling was nationwide. And then everything kind of consolidated into two different companies. And you still had independents out there, but at the end of the day, one of them won eventually in 2001, right? And they owned the majority of all the libraries of all the promotions. In fact, I'm wearing right now my shirt. Here was the promotion. ICW, owned by Angelo Poffo, which was Macho Man Randy Savage's father. And he wasn't part of the territory system either. He wasn't part of the NWA. He went ahead and just did whatever the hell he wanted. And they did do some crossover stuff with like Memphis. And eventually he basically created the promotion to promote Randy and Lanny, who recently passed away. Both of them RIP. And it worked because both of them became major stars. Lanny Poffo beat Hulk Hogan on television. Rare event for anyone, right? So anyway, he closed the promotion down, and then they kind of went to Memphis, did some storylines with Lawler, then they went to New York. But the point is, it's the end at this point in 2023 after they went public in 99, and then really you give up a lot of control when you do that, right? You're beholden to your shareholders. Well, now 2023, it's over. It's not the end of an era. It's the end of the company. Because Endeavor, NewCo, whatever you want to call it, they will be able to do whatever they want to a certain point. And to a larger extent, WWE has done that to themselves over the last, 10 years, because I really stopped watching in earnest, I'd say in 07, and didn't really get back into it until, I'm going to say 2019. I would watch occasionally. So the point is, they kind of started corporatizing really heavily, doing the whole diversity thing and saying all the right stuff. And they probably had to do that for their media deals and their advertising, all that, right? So this is the end of it. Here's what it's akin to. I think you guys know what I'm alluding to here. What is this like? What is this sale like? Somebody in the chat answer. What is the sale of WWE to Endeavor to merge with UFC like? Somebody answer that question. I think, again, you guys know what I'm alluding to. While I let you guys mull that over, let's take a look at what you guys are saying. Monkey Jeebus, the advertising for next year is not great. Looks like a gray, dead city. Yeah, I'm not going to Philadelphia, I'll tell you that much. Subhuman is saying, watch Impact every now and then. Haven't seen him use it. But was it an octagon or was it six-sided? I think it was six-sided. Someone correct me if I'm wrong. Haven't seen it in years. Jack says, better to Endeavor than to the Saudis. That's true. I was worried about that because that would just be... That would be a travesty. I'm sorry. Love that diversity. That pick is old. Oh, yeah, of course it's old. It's extremely old. So is the one of Dana and Nick and all the others. Yeah, good point. Paying women off is a huge crime for some. Very true. So long as it stays that, but that's my point. It's not really going to be. this is the end of the company, not the end of an era, unless you want to call the era the entire company since 81, 82, whatever it was when Vince Sr. passed the torch to Vince, and it became a whole new company doing new different things and just exploding in success and scope and size and reach. This is the end of it. They're not going to be able to do the stuff they used to do. And again, they've largely done that to themselves. They've dialed back a lot of what they used to do in the 90s and even the 80s. The 80s, people talk about attitude era, but the 80s were a lot more extreme than you remember. Because I've been going back and watching year by year, not chronologically, but I'll do 1 year and then skip to another. And there was some pretty intense stuff, even in the 80s, that wouldn't fly on television now. No, yeah, that's it, Blake. Lucasfilm. Yeah, that's what it is. Because George Lucas, I've said this a couple of times, George Lucas and Vince McMahon have a lot more in common than you think. Because George came in, film student. I want to make the movies I want to make. So we made these weird artsy fartsy movies, right? That quite frankly, no one wanted to see unless you're really into that type of movie. THX 1138. And then just a bunch of weird short films that, quite frankly, you probably never heard of. But I do because I have several books on the man. So someone said, hey, make a normal movie, George. It's a challenge. So he made American Graffiti, made a lot of money. And then he said, okay, now I can start pushing for what I want to do. And it's to make this Star Wars thing. And then he made it. And then he had to leave the Writers Guild, the Directors Guild, Screen Actor, all that stuff, because he wouldn't put credits at the front. He wanted to be independent. He wanted control. So he got the merchandising rights, and then he funded Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi. And then he became a self-made billionaire. He wanted to be independent. Then he sold. He had all this independence. He could write his own checks. He could make whatever he wanted, which is what he wanted. And then, whole different topic, but he got old and sold it and said, I'm going to give it to this mega conglomerate Disney. Well, this is what's happening here. But the reasons for it happening are different, right? But it's the same parallel where Vince is done and he's going to hand it over while remaining in charge. That's the difference. George stepped away. You see him in the credits because he's creator. He created by, characters created by, whatever, but Vince will be involved. But the parallel is there where he was done and he sold it off, and he being in control, right or wrong, he's made a lot of bad decisions. He's made a lot of good decisions, but that's over with, right? There will be no more Vince overrides the storyline decision behind the scenes. It could, if they allow him to remain in control, but at the end of the day, someone else will have more power than him because of the 51% of Legacy Endeavor shareholders having control of this NewCo, this merger of UFC and WWE. It's the end of an era. It's the end of the company. It'll be WWE in name only. Now, that can be good or bad, considering how you look at the last, say, decade of the company, of their public face, of their content, of what they've put on screen. But that's where I was going with that. This, WWE and Lucasfilm were one of the few entertainment companies that were truly independent, where pretty much one guy at the end of the day could call the shots. And now it's gone. If this deal is finalized, which we have no reason to believe it won't be. Again, my estimate is early June, with December at the latest of this happening. But that's where I was going with that. Big corporate businesses buy out artistic, beloved business. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, all because of credits. But at the end of the day, I'm glad it happened because he got the hell out of there and did his own thing. It was a middle finger to Hollywood. He had some offices in Hollywood, but his main office wasn't there. He didn't hang out there. But that's the whole thrust of this. Like WWE is now Hollywood. You don't believe me? Let's take a look at some of their assets at Endeavor. Like I said, PBR, and there's NewCo. They're merged together in that graphic. They're going to be the same company. PBR, Professional Bull Riding, the Miami Open, Mutua Madrid Open, EuroLeague Basketball. This Winter Wonderland is some kind of British annual fair type thing. Freeze, big production company. Barrett Jackson. But you go over here to the complementary capabilities, the WME, as Blake said earlier, this agency will be trying to throw wrestlers into random movies, where they need cannon fodder. I don't know if they'll be like top stars in any movies, but if you need a guy in the background, a henchman, yeah, grab, I don't know, Braun Strowman or something like that, and have him say some goofy line, and then he gets blown away. IMG. You guys have heard of IMG. Asylum. Of course you've heard Asylum. I know my audience. This Film 45. I put a clip out there earlier on Twitter. They're working with Disney, like on the Ahmed Best game show thing, Jedi Temple Challenge, whatever it is. They're working on the GLAD Awards. They're working on something else Disney. Trying to remember, but point is, this is Hollywood, guys. If this goes through, WWE is now Hollywood, for worse. Not for better or worse, for worse. This is definitely going to affect stuff. I'm going on the record to say that they won't let them just run it the way they have. You're not going to see immediate changes because, again, this is going to take months to finalize. But that's what they're going to be about. They will be Hollywood. One guy called the shots, but one woman ran the show. Marsha, exactly. Marsha Lucas. Or as the quartering would say, Marcia Lucas. Will it thrive artistically? No, it won't. I don't have any faith at all that they won't just completely Hollywoodize wrestling. UFC fights will have consequences. You suck. You will get demoted to WWE. Yeah, you'll not only get demoted, but you'll be like on Main Event. For those who don't know, Main Event is now like the jobber show that no one even knows about. It's like streaming only. Not even sure if it's in syndication or on any cable network, but it's definitely on Peacock streaming. It's akin to the Sunday Night Heats and Velocity from back in the day. So, do you guys remember the initial format for WWF Shotgun Saturday Night? I thought it was awesome. They were they'd be in these small venues, like in bars and stuff, and it was really revolutionary, but I don't think the world was ready for it. And it only lasted several weeks until they kind of turned Shotgun into just a normal preliminary type of show, like I just mentioned, like Sunday Night Heat. But it was really interesting when it first came out. It's been bad since the invasion. No, there have been some bright spots. I'm not gonna lie, but I did drop out right after X8, and then I came back for XIX because I wanted to see like Brock versus Angle. Then I dropped out again, and then I came back. I want to say in 06 because SmackDown was good. I heard SmackDown was good, and my buddy Matt from Four Corners I didn't have SmackDown at the time. The local affiliate stopped carrying it. So he would send me DVDs where he'd record it. And I was really like, he'd send them in batches so I could watch them, like, I could binge them. And you had a lot of good stuff going on. You had Ray and Eddie, and trying to think of what else was going on at the time, JBL, all that stuff. It was a good show. And then I dropped out again after like the second one night stand and some of the episodes of the ECW show. It was horrible. And then I came back to kind of watch some of the CM Punk stuff, kind of got bored with it. And then I dropped out until I think WrestleMania, I think it was 2018 or 19, but I didn't watch the shows. I don't think I started watching the shows until August 2021. And it wasn't week in and week out, but for the Bloodline Sami Zayn angle, I've been watching solidly since, I'm going to say September. And that's the most I've watched. I'm definitely going to tone it down because didn't like some of the results from last night. I'll kind of see where they're going with it, but it's like, I don't know. They had a big opportunity there to give the crowd what they wanted and still do what they wanted. Because if you give Cody the title, give the fans what they want. Well, in a few weeks here, have some kind of screw job where he drops it back to Roman and then he continues chasing it. Something like that. But in that situation, it's like, give the crowd what they want. It's fake fighting at the end of the day. And Roman carrying it for almost 3 years and dropping it would not have hurt him. So, whole different topic though. So point is, this slide here indicates that they're now Hollywood. Here's the actual press release. Pretty long, I've seen longer ones, but I'm going to do a Control F here. Look for the word synergy. So this paragraph here, hang on, I have to stop sharing because I was sharing a tab. I wasn't sharing my actual window. All right. There it is. So this paragraph here, together, UFC and WWE expect to deliver an estimated 50 million to 100 million in annualized run rate cost synergies by leveraging, among other things, Endeavor's back office and robust infrastructure. So what that means is run rate means, hey, I'm going to estimate that this quarter I can save $100 million. Well, how many quarters are there in a year? There are 4. So you're saving 400 million for a year, for a fiscal year, because that's your run rate, right? So what does this mean? These synergies, by leveraging, among other things, their back office and robust infrastructure, means that, hey, a lot of the functions being served by WWE employees, we already have people doing that. So unless there's something really specific being done in the office, then they don't need those people. And they're going to get laid off and they'll be counted as a cost savings synergy, right? A synergy cost savings. Now you have to imagine a lot of the functions like accounts payable and accounts receivable and just stuff that doesn't really matter to the brand specifically or to the company. Like it's just, I'm pressing buttons. Easily you could get rid of those people, but some of it will have very specific industry knowledge that's needed to effectively perform that duty. Like let's say marketing and event planning and stuff like that. Those types of people will be kept around at least initially. And quite frankly, in these situations, I've seen it in my company where they make the people think that, hey, they're going to be around for a while. But then, wait a minute, we've absorbed your knowledge. See you later. Or some of the people that are especially savvy will be able to stay, and then the original ones will get kicked out. I've seen that happen. I've seen CEOs come in from the acquired company and kick out the CEO of the acquiring company. It's crazy, but it does happen. So point is, I don't think bloodbath is too strong of a term to use here, but they will be getting rid of people for sure. So, right now that if you're working for WWE, you're probably like, I'm going to ride this out and see what kind of severance package they have, see what kind of stock payout I'll get, whatever. Or if you're another type of person, you're looking right away because you want that stability, you want that predictability where your life is going to head. Some people really can't deal with the uncertainty out there, and they want to be able to find a stable job right away. So we'll see what happens with that. But huge news there, that they're just coming out and saying it. And it makes sense. I mean, it doesn't make sense to keep people around that are performing basic functions that can be done by almost anyone. Let's see what you guys are saying here. International Marketing Group. Slap fighting is a bigger danger. They don't block and take direct hits. Yep, Skirmitar got it right. It's a layoff. What about says Vince always wanted to be Hollywood. Still remember him hard drinking that bottle of water and that Wrestling with Shadows doc and saying, "We make movies, pal." Oh, yeah. And he was eating peanuts like, "We make movies." Yeah. I actually drove a couple hours to see that movie because a local theater wasn't showing it. And I saw it in, was it early 2000 when I saw it, or was it early 99? It had to have been early 2000 when I saw it in February, I want to say. But I had to drive a couple of hours to see it. And that's Beyond the Mat is what he's talking about. It wasn't Wrestling with Shadows, it was Beyond the Mat. Unless there was another scene in Wrestling with Shadows. I don't remember one. But yeah, Beyond the Mat, if you haven't seen it, by what's his name? Barry Goldstein, I think is his name. Prominently features Jake Roberts, Mick Foley, New Jack, and a few others. Yeah, it was Beyond the Mat. I see it there. It's good. If you haven't seen it, I have it on DVD. It probably needs to be on the Alternative Factory because it's good. I'll just put it that way. Coming up on 25 years old next year because it's a 1999 movie without even looking, because I remember it came out around that weird time in the holidays to where which year movie is it, for Oscar noms and all that stuff. We make movies like The Marine. That's kind of a movie. Or they did the horror movie, right, with Kane. And then if you guys don't know this, like look it up, but it just disappeared years ago. Let me see if I can find it. Jornada del Muerto. Let me do this here. IMDb. I don't even think it's on IMDb anymore, but at the time when they said, "Hey, we're going to make all these movies." Oh, here it is. I found a really fucking old random wrestling website article on it, but it used to be on IMDb. Jornada del Muerto. It was supposed to star Triple H. The plot outline reads: a modern day Western where gangs, drug trafficking, and broken codes of honor rule. So, Triple H, being the savvy guy he is, said, these movies are not doing too well, so we're not going to make it. That's my guess. but you stopped hearing stuff about that like really quickly. Anyway, yeah, those movies were pretty horrible. Wrestling with Shadows about Brett. Yeah, it's a good one. I used to, and I think I still do have it recorded on VHS from back in the day. I might have it on DVD now. I'm not really sure, but it's easily findable if you go out there and look on, YouTube or Daily Motion or whatever. It's definitely biased, but from the footage you see, biased for Brett. But if the footage you see tells you what you need to know, then is it really biased? Because they have actual footage of Shawn Michaels, Vince, all that stuff on the Montreal screw job. So it's definitely worth a look. Or sequels to okay movies like Behind Enemy Lines. Is that the one that had like The Miz? I don't know. So point is, guys, there's a lot more information in this slide, and it's all pretty nerdy in terms of finance. It's not really dissimilar to any other publicly released financial information by corporations. And it all depends on whether or not this thing is a success. Because think about the AOL Time Warner merger. Think about stuff like that, which was obviously a lot larger of a merger than this one. But let me show you this really quick. This one's interesting. So they have all these brands, and then they have a cross reference here, right? You've got NBA, MLB, NHL, NFL, the Premier League, Premier, however they say it. And then they've got high engagement, global growth, young and diverse fans, control of all rights, lack of team/team owners, year-round content. So they're basically saying that these sports leagues have some high engagement, global growth, young and diverse fans, and none of this, none of the control of the all rights. But you pop over here to NewCo, to WWE and UFC merger, they will have all these things. So this is what they're focused on right here, right? This slot. This is why they think the merger was valuable. That's why they think the merger was valuable. And I don't know what they mean by young and diverse being yes and no. Is it based on the league? I'd like to see those leagues broken out. Are they referring to NHL? Did they just think like a bunch of white Canadian guys watch NHL? Does anyone know if that's true? I don't watch hockey. So that's the kind of thinking that they have. Okay, it was Mr. Kennedy and then The Miz. Didn't like Mr. Kennedy. Just, no, never liked the character or even the guy. Never liked him. Mr. Kennedy. No, didn't buy it. Well, Mark Wahlberg knockoff. Now he's we'll just put it this way, he's a Chi-Com look-alike knockoff with his bald spot. John China. So anyway, that's really what's going on. To recap, last night, early this morning, however you want to look at it, after WrestleMania had concluded, they released this information that WWE and UFC is to merge, be owned by Endeavor, and it will be finalized sometime in 2023. My best estimate is June, as late as December. I don't think it'll be longer because of quite frankly, the non-complex reality of those two companies. And Vince McMahon, once again, let's go back to slide 28, will stay in power. Dana White will stay in power, which is not a surprise. He has led UFC to success for a very long time now. And then Nick Khan, President WWE will stay in power, and that's one of Vince's only remaining allies. Stephanie left the company, because of her father. I don't care what anyone says. And they're going to be owned by Endeavor, whose shareholders will have 51% ownership, with WWE shareholders, Vince McMahon included, having 49%. So he will no longer be in full control of WWE. We'll see what happens next as more details come out, but he has found a way to survive here. He stepped down back in August, September, whatever it was, whenever the news came out that he had been paying hush money to women he was involved with in extramarital affairs. He reappeared a couple of months ago solely to supposedly make this sale happen to whoever the buyer would be. We didn't know at the time. They were mentioned once in at least one Wrestling Observer news piece I could find. And then suddenly there are rumors coming out he's get more involved in creative. So we'll have to see what happens. But again, they're sold, going to be merged with UFC. We expect it to be approved by SEC and other organizations, regulatory organizations that oversee mergers of this type. And that's about it. So guys, thanks for joining me on a rare day off where this happened to align with the news, which is kind of cool, so that I could get on here and talk about it. We're going to keep following this. I'm going to have some other people on in the next couple of weeks, couple of months, as details emerge. People that may have better contacts than I do, that maybe could shed some more light on this stuff. But thanks to everyone for being here. Appreciate you. And we'll see you in the very near future. Bye.